Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. A tremendous Yeshikach, first of all, to Reb Tzvi for the beautiful spread tonight. It's important to know. We come here, Baruch Hashem, we enjoy, but Reb Tzvi takes from his own personal time and his own resources, Baruch Hashem, to be able to make something so beautiful for all of us. So Reb Tzvi, on behalf of the entire shir, thank you so very much. Tremendous Yeshikach. So also, Akiva, who's an anonymous sponsor? In honor of what? Okay. And there's an anonymous sponsor, the anonymous Machshava sponsor. We thank whoever he or she is. We truly appreciate the generosity and 2023. You know, it's so with that.
There's a chance.
All right. Okay, so let's continue. Emirat Hashem, and tonight we have lofty aspirations and goals. Emirat Hashem, to be able to continue the Sefer. I'm feeling very good about this. We are picking up on the bottom of page 57. 57. So, both, if you remember again, last week I actually ended off and. Really, like we've been singing for a half hour, and now you need ice. Yeah, move that.
Can you put that in Delaware, please?
Can you move it to Darkei? Please. Just take it to Darkei. Are we bobbing for apples in there? What is it? So. Oh my gosh. Where's that? I must have been like in a previous Gilgal. I don't know. I must have sinned with ice in some way. It's always here. All right. So remember again. Last week we left off talking about in paragraph Yud. So we spoke about the idea that the Bnai Machshava Tova, that the members of the Chaburah shouldn't speak publicly about what it is that we're doing in the Chaburah, but rather, again, part of being in this Chaburah is the idea that it's also something that is done with tznius and done quietly. And he quotes over here, Kimosha Azar HaKadosh Hiskalak B'Ma'aras Rashi and Baruch Ha'atzniah. Great spiritual and lofty things do not unfold in public settings. Great spiritual and lofty things often only unfold in privacy, right, and in a tsanua, in a modest atmosphere. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, right, remember again, where does Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai acquire all of his deep and esoteric knowledge of Torah? In a cave. And remember again, and where does he convey it? To his son and to his disciples on his deathbed, again in a room, all alone. It wasn't a public shir, it wasn't a scholar residence, right? It wasn't a gathering. So I'll say it's actually an incredible yesod that sometimes the most profound moments in life, it's almost like there's like this dichotomy. Sometimes, the most profound moments in life happen with great multitudes of people, but sometimes like on a deep spiritual level, sometimes the most moving spiritual moments of life happen in a more private setting, happen maybe with a much smaller chavra, behind closed doors, and often in ways that no one else ever really knows about. See, he quotes this idea. He says, "V'chala Kabbalah nikra sod ki kain kol avoda sheyesh," page 58. Ba eskalas hanefesh misnagedes hilishon upirsum v'noach lahester. So the Rebbe says, any avoda, any spiritual service that is there ultimately again to reveal the deeper recesses of the soul, really only occurs in a private setting. Lo b'rash Hashem. V'rak im yirtze milis tapeach blohem b'tor chaver chadash. I'm sorry, before we get to that. So I'll say, so it's fascinating. So therefore, again, everything that happens with the Chaburah should be b'hatzneh, should be with modesty, should be with a little, not secrecy. Secrecy is, it doesn't have to be secret, but it's quiet. And but understand what the Rebbe is saying is that, so think about it for just a moment. I eventually this, a lot of times, think about it like this. A lot of times, the reason why we're drawn to group events, the nice part about group events, what's the nice part about group events? Schnitzel, right? That is true. You also could avoid retreating inward a little bit. The nice part about being with other people is there's something to focus on other than me. I can focus on you. I can focus on this. I can focus on the niggin. Part of the reason why many of us do not carve out real time to be with ourselves is because we're afraid. I don't really want to look inward. I don't really want to introspect. Because sometimes I'm a little bit nervous to discover what I'm going to find if I look inside. But the Rebbe says it's for that very reason that true spiritual development doesn't come en masse, right? And doesn't come ultimately again in the multitudes. True spiritual development happens either by oneself or with a very small group and in a private setting. In a private setting. And if somebody wants to join the Chavra, someone wants to join the Chaburah, the group, accept him. Accept him again with a smiling countenance. I will say this is actually pretty incredible. So to join, let's say again there's a Chaburah, somebody wants into the Chaburah. He wants in. He heard about this great Bnai Machshava Tova, Bnai Machshava Tova Chaburah. He wants in. No problem, let him in, as long as what? You feel that there is a sincere desire within this individual to grow. There's Rosai, you know what the difference between this and every other limud is? Rosai, if you just want to come to Daf Yomi, just to learn information, to observe the beauty of Torah, there's no barrier to entry. Let's say a person says, I want to learn Daf Yomi, I have zero interest in personalistic change. Now the truth is, everyone knows how that story ends. Right? Many have started with the Daf Yomi just for a Masechta, right? You know who you are, right? Just for a Masechta, right? Without a desire to change or this, that, right? And it pulls you in, right? It just pulls you in a dramatic way. But let's say a person says, you know what? I'm interested in information, I'm not interested in change. Okay, no problem. Come to Shir. Learn Torah, it's fantastic. Piagetna says, if somebody takes that approach, don't let them in the Chaburah. Everybody say, we know this. Because what is the key prerequisite to being part of this Chaburah? A desire to change. A desire for personalistic transcendence. A desire for self-actualization. So if you're interested in some interesting ideas, but really have no interest in the application of personal development, in other words, I'm happy where I am. I don't need to change anything. I'm just interested in broadening my intellectual horizons. There's much other Torah that you can learn. This is not the address. Peter says, don't let that person into the Chaburah. He says as follows: Similarly again, in order to allow a person into the Chaburah, listen to this, you have to make sure that his association with the Chaburah will be good for him and will be good for the other members of the Chaburah. So I remember again, this Chaburah, this group, is a partnership in synergistic growth. But in order for there to be synergistic growth, what has to happen? Synergy. There has to be synergy between all of the participants. So that's why, again, we learned in last week's share, everybody has to love each other. There has to be a schabros, a connection, a dveikus, a ava. So if someone wants to come in, number one, he has to be a growth-oriented person. Number two, the chemistry has to work. It has to be that the chabra feels, okay, this is a guy who's value-added, and they feel about him and he feels about them. He says, and ultimately, again, you could even recruit a little bit. If you see someone who you think would be good for the chabra, you think will be value added, you could go ahead and recruit. As long as everything is L'Shem Shana. Sibo saying, here's the incredible part about what's happening over here. Chabra, let me ask you a question. Can you finish Shas and be an absolute hypocrite?
Oh, yeah.
Here? Yeah. Right? In other words, I can learn Kala Torah Kula and be a Rasha. So in other words, and not only that, we would even say, even if a person is a Rasha, we would still tell them, yeah, learn Torah, with the hope is that the learning will change them. But there's no barrier to entry based on your personalistic spiritual standing. This is different because here it's not just about you. Here it's about the dynamics of the Chavra. And everyone has to be at least on the same page. I want to grow. I want to change. I want to evolve. I want to find my heart. I want to transform from being a servant into a son. So if not everybody is on the same page with that, then ultimately, again, it erodes the fabric of the Chaburah. Yud Aleph. I will say this is an incredible paragraph. All right, we might not finish tonight, but this is. But this will say this is. No. Because I don't want to rush it. We might. There's plenty of time still. We might get there. It says as follows. I just want to manage expectations. Kol echad me'achar. Let's say, I'll tell you the truth. Can I be honest for a second? A moment of brutal honesty. I don't want to finish. This is like a shtickle dragging my feet a little bit. This is like when you have something beautiful in life, you don't want it to be over. We could chazer, but chazara is not the first time. There's something special about the first time. There's something special about the first experience. I'm not going to lie. Shtickle dragging my feet a little bit because I don't know. Like we get to be with the Rebbe. And we're soaking in every single thing like children who are experiencing something for the first time. I'll give you a Machshava Davadomer. I just bought my granddaughter a parsha book. So she sat down, but I forgot what it's like that I have to sit there and read it for 3 hours. So I got her a parsha book, and again she has it at home, and it's beautiful to see how she eats it up. Why? It's like new. Who's that? Oh, that's Avram. Who's Avram? And you see, the expression is just sheer delight. We'll say, to learn to the Rebbe's Torah and to be exposed to all of these new ideas, it's sheer delight. It's Olam Haba in Olam Hazeh. So it's a shtickle dragging my feet because I don't want to attend, but all right, let's go. Yud Aleph. Kolach Mechar, let's listen to this profound idea. Every member of the Chevra, so remember again, this is actually very important. We'll say, who are the members of this Chaburah? It's us. I'm sorry. So those are the people. All right, that's the Chevra that asked them to write up the manual. But remember, he wrote it for them. But the goal is it's a manual for everyone. Right? So remember, who else? For people like us who have a day job. Right? I wish I could say that I'm spending my entire day engrossed in the process of personalistic growth. But the truth is, through the sweat of your brow, you eat bread, right? You have to work really hard for a parnasa. So listen to this, what I'll say. He says, every member of the Chaburah is going to be actively engaged in pursuing their livelihood. Chov alav shir be'emtzah tirdasa. So we'll say, now the Lashon is as follows. Sometimes when a person is preoccupied with their parnasa, then we'll say, what's the danger of parnasa? Or what's, not the danger, what's the challenge of parnasa? What would you say? The challenge of parnasa?
My right arm.
Right, so the truth is I could think right, I could think kochi va'otzim yadi, look what I'm accomplishing, take God out of the picture, good, what else?
Around the world.
Getting
Over-involved. There's a stress. We all know this. There's a stress associated with earning a living. And that stress of earning a living is like no other stress. In other words, there are plenty of stressors in life. But the stress of earning a living is the type of stress that could eclipse and overshadow everything else. Right? To both say, a person who has struggled with parnasa, right? If you ever have a time in life where you don't have enough money, even if somebody stops you and tells you, oh, you know what, but think about all of your blessings, right? What's your response to that? I don't see any blessings right now. I do not see anything except the fact that I don't have enough money. That's the challenge. That's the challenge of parnasa, right? The stress of parnasa could eclipse everything. So the Piagestan says, so what happens if you're a member of this Chaburah, person who's focused on personal growth, and you know what? I'm having a tough day, or a tough week, or a tough month, or a tough decade, right? And I'm tired in my parnasa. I'm overwhelmed with it, and I feel like it's beginning to eclipse the way I see the world and the way I see life. So what do I do? He writes, what should you say? Person should stop in the middle of his tirda. Listen to this, Rabbi. In the moment when you are most preoccupied, in the moment when you are most overwhelmed, what should you do? Stop and say the following. He says, and don't just say it once, say it a couple of times throughout the day. What should you say? Ribono shel olam, nimtza ani ata b'mekomos hamisukanim l'nafshi kidushasi. Ribono shel olam, I currently find myself in a situation that is dangerous to my soul and dangerous to my life. Why? I will say, why is tirda of parnasa? Right? Why is being overwhelmed? Why is that a danger to my soul and to my holiness? We know why. Because when a person needs to make money and they don't have money, It's one of the times in life where what? You could be easily tempted to take shortcuts. I could be easily tempted to do things that are not appropriate. Because again, that's the stress of Parnasa. So he says, stop in the moment when you feel most stressed. Stop and say, Ribono Shel Olam, right now I find myself in an overwhelming situation. I feel that my soul, I feel that my personalistic holiness is in danger. Ata al ta'azveni. Don't leave me. Tamuch v'shamar osi shomer Yisrael. Support me and watch over me, guardian of Israel. We'll say, how incredible is that? How absolutely incredible is that? So first of all, it tells you also the audience that the Piaget is writing to. As Reb Chaim mentioned before, you're right. He wrote it for a group of his Talmidim. But the goal is that this is not just going to be a guide for Kodal guys, right? The goal, ultimately, again, is that this is a guide for all of us, for Balabatim, for us regular people as well. So what do you do in that moment? So here I will say, you know what the great economy of life, I'll say, you know what the great challenge is? Well, what's the great challenge in spirituality? You could work and work and work and build yourself up to a level, and then what happens? What happens? One wrong decision, one wrong move, one wrong glance, and suddenly everything comes toppling down. It's the most frustrating. It doesn't even make sense. I work so hard to get myself here, and then literally one misstep brings me all the way down. See, here, we're involved in a process of personalistic growth. That's what we're all about. All about delving into the neshama, discovering the neshama, transforming from servants into sons, the slaves into sons. That's what we're trying to do. But what do I do about the fact that no matter how much momentum I gain in life, I could be faced with one moment that brings everything down? So Piaget says, you know what you do? In that moment, we'll say, this is incredible. In that moment, when you feel that you are on the cusp of maybe buckling beneath the pressures of life, and maybe that's going to lead you to do something that you don't want to do, or that you know you shouldn't do. Wait, pause, and what do? A tefillah. Ribono Shel Olam, Please HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I am in a dangerous situation. I feel that I'm in spiritual danger, I'm in personalistic danger. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, do not leave me alone in this moment. Support me and watch over me, for you are the guardian of Israel. He says, Lo b'lashon hazeh dafka tzarich lemor. You don't have to say it dafka in this lashon. Rak ke'ein zeh b'chol lashon shenoach lo. Say it in any language you want. But Abba said, I want to point out over here, this approach has a twofold benefit. I will say, one of the greatest strategies to the avoidance of sin, right? Let's say, take a case. Maybe you have a friend who is tempted to commit averos, right? And this friend often goes ahead and falls prey to his temptations. I will say, what's a good strategy? It's good to know in life. What's a good strategy to avoid the temptation to sin? I'm tempted. What's a good strategy? Oh, malachim over here. Wow, incredible. You guys just eat schnitzel and learn Torah the whole day. It's fantastic. Call a friend. What? Occupy yourself, good. Change your makom. Rabbi Nachman said, I'm sorry?
Have a friend that you call.
Have a friend, good, phone a friend. Learn Torah, say Kriyat Shema, Yom HaMisa, good. Rabbi Nachman says there's a very simple strategy. He says, tell the Yetzer Hara, I'm going to sin in 2 minutes. I'm going to sin in 2 minutes. Don't tell the Yetzer Hara you're not going to sin, because you're going to lose the battle. 9.9 out of 10 times, if you go head to head with the Yetzer Hara, he's stronger than you, he's older than you, he's been at this since the beginning of time, he's ensnared people much greater than you, he's got this down to a science. So if you try to go head to head and say, Satan, Malach Amaves, Yetzer Hara, I'm not going to sin, he's like, oh yeah, let's go, right? Let's go, right? Let's go. I'll take that challenge, right? Challenge accepted, right? I'll take that, and you're going to lose. So the best thing you can do is tell you, I'm going to sin. Just not right now. Not right now. Give me 2 minutes. See, what the Rebbe really was saying was, sometimes when you exercise just a little bit of restraint, it allows you to go ahead and get control of the situation. It's the same Rebbe say, this comes up very often. People often get themselves into a lot of trouble when they respond immediately. Klal Gadol in life. Right? When you're in a stressful situation and you have to respond, nothing wrong with taking your time. Save yourself a lot of heartache if you do that. Shabbos says it's incredible. It's incredible. So here, what the Rebbe is saying is like this. So I think what the Pizhah is saying is similar to Rabbi Nachman. I'm in a makom tirda. I'm overwhelmed by parnasa. I'm overwhelmed by my life circumstances. I'm scared that I'm going to buckle. Right? In some dramatic way and do something out of the stress of my parnasa. The Rebbe says, what should you do? Stop and daven. There's two things that's happening over here. Number one is the tefillah, which is a profound one. I'm in trouble. Don't leave me. Support me. I'm in existential danger. I need you. Tefillah is beautiful. What else is it? I will say, what else is it? It's a stall tactic. Because if I just built in a pause button in life, it's amazing how many bad decisions we could avoid. Because we'll see, the way Avera works is you get wrapped up, or you get eager, you get passionate to do something, and the desire is there. And when desire is talking, the mind and the soul are shut off. But if you hit the pause button for just a little bit, suddenly you can regain composure and make it. So there's two things happening over here. Number one is the tefillah, and number two is the pause button. Incredible. Incredible. All right, both say Yud Beis. A lot to do. Good, we got this. Yud Beis. No need to laugh at that, right? Yud Beis. So both say Tistakel al kol echa me'acharbiya kal ish b'mnei aliyah. Well, this is beautiful. How do you look at the fellow members of the Chaburah? You have to look at each of them as Bnei Aliyah, as people who are dedicated to growth. Now understand why this line is such an important line. What did we learn about last week? Remember again, you have to have a chavrusa in the group. And what do you do with your chavrusa? Right? Make yourself vulnerable. Tell everything. I was saying, sometimes when a person tells you everything, right? So sometimes it's like a little bit hard to look at that, right? Sometimes you avoid eye contact afterwards, right? Maybe you avoid contact altogether, right? I will say, right? Therapists know this, right? One of the things you have to work on therapists, right? Therapists are like, they have to keep a straight face, right? Someone walks into your office and they drop on you, you're like, or you're like, right? You are not going to have a practice for very long, right? You have to keep that equanimity, right? You have to be able to. So I'll say, you can't go ahead. You can't go ahead. And so I'll say, so it's incredible over here. So here's what he's saying is, here we're all going to have chavrusas, and as chavrusas, what we have to do is make ourselves vulnerable to each other and open up. So I'm going to tell you, some of my deepest, darkest stuff. And now your challenge is going to be to still look at me as a special and holy person with all of those frailties, with all of those mistakes. Even though we divulge, and even though we make ourselves vulnerable, even though we share, we look at each other as Bnei Aliyah. And ultimately you should give him kavod, have an exalted status in my eyes. Shabbos said, this is beautiful. What makes a person holy? What makes a person holy, Bosai, is not simply what they do or what they don't do. What makes a person holy is ultimately the desires they have, or who they want to be in life. We often think that holiness is determined by actions. That is partly true, but holiness is also determined by desires. You see, part of the beauty of being part of this Chaburah is you don't have to be actionally perfect. Right? You don't have to be doing everything right all the time. But what must you possess? An unquenchable thirst and an insatiable desire to become someone greater. And if you have that, then you're the sons of prophets. If you have that, then you're Kodesh Kodashim, you're Holy of Holies. If you walk around every day in life and say, you know what, I have an insatiable desire to be greater. Now maybe I'm not doing anything about it today, but I have it. I possess that. The possession of that trait, the possession of that desire, that makes you holy. Incredible. Paragraph Yud Gimel. Here we go. Chaver gam mibnei irach eretz yiskabel hachavra. Sounds like almost like we're getting into like the legal details over here. Out-of-state residents are eligible for membership, right, in the local chapter of the Bnai Machshava Tova Chaburah, right?
Fine print here.
Fine print over here. Jose says, can you accept out-of-towners? Right? So, Chaver Gam Irach Eretz Yiskabel hachavra. Yeah, the answer is you can accept out-of-towners. In other words, again, remember, essentially what the Piaget's is saying is he's laying down a lot of rules. So I guess he felt that he had to be almost a bit more explicit in terms of, we're talking about the qualities of the kind of people who are part of this Chaburah. So just understand, it doesn't just have to be people who know each other. It could even be someone from a different town. V'im yimtzu lo chaverim be'iro yisnagu k'niskel el. V'im lo yisnagu ba'atzmo k'chol asher efshalo. So here's describing what happens if you live in a place where Lemaisa, again, you can't gather a Chaburah like this. Somebody asked this last week about doing this as an individual, not a Chaburah. Who asked that? Yaakov, your brother-in-law? Okay. All right. Yaakov, you? Good. Yaakov mentioned that? Good. All right. So, okay, somebody mentioned it last week about this idea about, is this dafka a group dynamic, or can this even be done as individual work? So here the PHS actually directly addresses that, and he says something amazing. He says, what if you live in a place and you can't get a Chaburah together? For whatever the reason, people aren't interested in it. Right? This isn't also, again, even the PHS themselves said this isn't for everyone. Not everybody takes to this type of stuff. Not everybody takes to this type of limud or this type of derech. So what if you can't find a group? See, he says, at least identify some group you could be a part of, even if it's out of town, or even if it's in town. Let's say people aren't interested in doing this weekly. Fine. Get the chevra together at least once a year. Okay, and the other ones, in other words, there's a necessity for there to be what they call a kibbutz chaverim, a gathering of friends, a gathering of people to be able to work together. He says, and again, not to make he says, this is not like making a gathering as like a party. That's not what this is. Rather, the goal is to get everybody together for a day. So he says over here, even if you can't get the chavra together every week, right? At least once a year there should be a gathering. So again, here the PHS says, so essentially what he says over here is, if you can't get a chaburah together, first of all, a lot of this work you can do on your own. You can do this as personal work. And we saw this. You can do this as personal work. It's more powerful when you do it as part of a group, but you can do it as personal work. But just understand, it's good to still have some form of chevra. Some form of community around this. Even if you just get together once a year for one day. In that once a year of one day, discuss your frailties, discuss your vulnerabilities, discuss your challenges, discuss what you're doing to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So at least there's some semblance of chevra, right? We'll say we are going to have to so close. Yes, the Chemia, yes.
Well, this requires an incredible amount of trust that Bnai will have to have that.
Yeah.
Did I miss it? I didn't see where you said how do you develop that trust? Without that trust.
So I think So I think what he's presupposing is you're only joining in a chaburah with people who you trust. In other words, the trust is the prerequisite. So in other words, that's why I want to point out, this doesn't work with random strangers, right? You could come to a shir with no one who you know, and the learning experience is just as beautiful. It's fantastic. This requires trust from the first moments. I think the only way to do it is you form that chaburah with people who you know, people with whom you have a pre-existing trust. All right, we're going to stop over here. There's no shir for the next 2 weeks. I'm sorry, I'm going to be in Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Hashem. So I don't apologize being in Eretz Yisrael. I apologize for not being here for the shir, Eretz Hashem. So we're going to resume not the Thursday after Chanukah, but whatever, two weeks from tonight to Eretz Hashem, and we are going to finish. Right, the next Shem Eretz Hashem we are going to finish. And actually, in 3 weeks. In 3 weeks from now, we'll finish Eretz Hashem. And I will say again, then I have a plan for afterwards, but we'll talk about that in Eretz Hashem in our next shir. Chevra, again, the beautiful part is we get to hold on to the Rebbe for one more week. For one more shir Eretz Hashem. I will say 3 more weeks. Shkoyach, Ma'ariv in the shul.
I think his idea of the once a year thing